Hello and welcome this morning. This is the In Christ Preparation for Participation session. I'd like to welcome you to this session. For these classes, you're going to want to have a journal and a spare sheet of paper or an index card and two different color pens and a comfortable place where you can sit uninterrupted throughout the next 30 to 45 minutes. We are currently in a little mini series on how do you relate to something that is that you feel is impossible for you to change, impossible for you to engage with, and actually make change in yourself and in the world. How does Jesus invite you into relationship with that so that you can participate in being that space of change? Today we are in the third part of that series, actually the fourth part, because the first part was just talking about the thing that was impossible. The second day we worked with how does your mind see that? What are the thoughts and the imagery that you see in your mind, and how do you bring that to God's living love so that it can be made anew? Yesterday we worked with our speech. How do you speak about that impossible aspect in your life? And then today we are talking about your behavior. How do you rest into the supported behavior that Christ is inviting you to do, so that you can actively be engaging with that experience of the aspect of impossibility that's in your life or in the world around you, and how do you participate and be in the space for changing that through the power of the living Christ? How do you actually recognize that the power of the living Christ is there, recognize what it is to you specifically, and then actually move with that power rather than with your own power? So we begin our time together in the same way that Jesus invites us to begin all of our moments of conscious awareness, and that is to first pause and take a moment to recognize how you are connected to and supported by the place where you are seated. Let's go ahead and take a moment to notice how your body is held by your seat. Let's do that together now. And as we are noticing how we are held by the place where we are seated, Jesus invites us to take a moment to recognize which part of your body feels the most held by your seat. And as you are noticing those body parts that are the most held where you are seated, Jesus invites you to take a moment and circle those. And we're saying, here is where I am already supported, right where I am seated. Here is where I am already supported, right where I am seated. And then from that place, you want to take a moment and notice what is the quality of support that you feel as you are being held here. And as you are noticing that, you're saying, this is God's living gift to me. This is God's living gift to me. And you want to take a moment, and we're bringing ourselves back into the conscious awareness of what is that thing that feels completely impossible to move in your, maybe within yourself or within your life. And then from that place, you want to look at that, and you want to take a moment to notice, how do you normally how do you normally behave in the face of this challenge? What is it that you are normally doing? Um, what is it that you're normally doing, that unconscious response that you have as you are facing into it? And maybe more than one thing that you do. Let's go ahead and take a moment and notice that together. Again, you're taking a look back at how are you unconsciously responding to this circumstance as it's facing into you. So, as you're noticing that, we want to go back and take a moment to refresh our awareness of what is it that God is already providing us right through the place where we are seated. What is that living gift that God is already providing us? And you want to take a moment and receive that into how it, into your behavior. And as you are noticing that, we then are coming back into relationship with how do we then respond in the moment. One of the things that Jesus is showing me is that um, you have your impossible circumstance that's happening, and as you are facing into that, if you slow this down, if slow it way down, you're going to feel the intensity of that impossible thing, and it can bring up whatever anger, frustration, hopelessness, a collapse, a impulse to fight. You can feel that come up within you. And what Jesus is inviting us to do is when that comes into your body, that experience or that aliveness, that is the power that then the mystery of our living Christ, the support of our living Christ, is going to reorganize within you. It's going to happen within your body because your body is the temple of the Lord. And so, as I take in that static or that intensity or whatever it is, that intense emotion, then I'm bringing what it is that God is providing me to that. He's saying that should be uh, become your conditioned behavior, is to take care of that aliveness first in your own body. I'm taking care of that and offering whatever it is that is giving you through the place where you are supported. You're the space of merging those. So for myself, I could feel, yeah, I can feel I can take it into my mind. I can feel a little bit, I can take it into my chest. If I keep strength training my capacity to slow down, but Jesus is saying, but go all the way through. So I can still feel it very alive in my gut and my impulse to speak. And he's like, if you just slow it down enough to take the time to offer that peace to every aspect of this, then what happens is you have a capacity to be with that intensity without reacting and recreating something, recreating what is actually happening to you or what is the thing that you actually see. He says this stuff is so intense because it's like you're walking into kryptonite. You're walking into and facing into this polarity. If you think about two magnets that are opposing each other, that's how we're going to be when we are, that's the aliveness we're going to feel. It's actually literal, tangible in your own system. That's what you're going to feel when you face into this type of challenge, something that feels impossible. There's going to be a very strong polarity. But that aliveness of that polarity is going to change inside your own physiology when you're able to receive what God is giving you and be inviting in the polarity. And it's like receive a little bit, invite in a little bit more of the challenge. This is not being positive or trying to think positive or trying to be peaceful with it. This is actually tending to the embodied experience of the challenge. I'm tending to how uncomfortable it actually feels and where the discomfort is. When I'm able to do that as my first response, that changes my behavior. That changes how I'm going out into addressing and relating with that impossible edge. I almost need, and I do need about 5 days just on this part because this is really hard to come into this and be that mediating space. I think we're going to spend a couple days here in the impulse to behave because if I can't get this, which this is extremely hard, tomorrow I'm going to break this down and kind of we're going to do it for how the mind is seen. We're going to spend like 5 minutes there. We're going to do it for our speech. We're going to hold it in for um, the impulse to behave and just kind of hold that behavior. We're going to do it for the emotion. So we're going to slow it down and actually hold those spaces in the way that Jesus is inviting us to do. But right now we have a very good snapshot of what it is that, what our impulse is. My impulse is to fight, or just get completely hopeless and have a hopeless story about it and collapse and just be disappointed in that corner or in that aspect of myself or my life because this is never going to move. I feel powerless. And Jesus is like, all of your power comes from God. There is no circumstance, there's no thing, there's no place in your world where you are going to be powerful, where you should know how to manage, how to deal with it, how to fix it. Jesus is saying you should be showing up like a child and allowing God's living love to be the power that holds you and carries you through the wilderness of whatever that circumstance is. And we have to let ourselves become that vulnerable and be positioned in that way rather than being trying to protect ourselves coming from that worldly perspective of I'm going to protect myself and I'm going to know exactly what needs to happen here. So anyways, this is quite a challenge. You want to take a moment and look at, again, refreshing your awareness of what it is that God is providing you through the place where you are seated. That's what we are taking in today into these different areas so that something new can begin to occur just in our own arriving in relationship with the challenge. I thank you all for being here today. It's my honor to be here with you, and I give great thanks to my living Jesus Christ who leads me on a very narrow path, and yet this path is what takes us right home to the center of God's living heart and love and aliveness so that we may receive it, we may be renewed by it, and we may be redirected from this power in our lives to respond to the circumstances of challenge and pain, and so that we can respond in a way that is full of this Christ mystery and love, so that we can participate in establishing heaven here on earth the way that Jesus modeled for us and the way that we are invited to do. I thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing you when it suits your schedule next. Have a great day.